Okay, why don't we get started? There's going to be a few more people. They'll keep coming. That's fine. So, quick introduction. My name is Nitin Mangtani. I manage the enterprise search team at Google. And today's talk, we are going to focus explicitly on Google Search Appliance, which is our intranet search solution, which many of you are using it or want to know more about the search appliance. I also have two special guests with me today. They'll be coming here later in the talk, but I just want them to stand up and say hi. So Chris and Robert, if you guys don't mind, just saying hi. These are the special guests which won the competition for the Google Search Appliance photo contest. So they are here to tell their story on how they're using Google Search Appliance. So I'll invite them to the stage at the later half of my presentation, and they'll talk about your use case. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Without any further ado, let me get started. So, search is something which is very near and dear to us at Google. And obviously, you all are familiar with the consumer side, which is google.com. And there's a lot of innovation that's happening on the consumer side. And you've seen that search has become the de facto starting point for all the information. It's not just about finding documents and news, but it's about finding information related to weather, finance, movies, and maps. It's one single search box for all your information. And the mission of the Google Search Appliance team at Google is to bring that same experience for enterprise. Now, we obviously understand that inside the enterprises, there are a lot of interesting challenges. But there's no reason from an end user point of view you cannot deliver the same experience. Quick update, and I want to thank all the customers here. We do have more than 20,000 customers ranging from small to mid-size all the way to Fortune 500 customers. So I do want to thank all the customers here who have been using our products. The core mission and the final delivery that we are looking from an end user point of view is this experience, what we call it universal search. No matter where your information is, you might be using SharePoint, you might be using Documentum, FileNet, FileShares, SAP, or any information source out there. What we want to deliver is a universal search experience to their end users so that they can go to one single search box to get all their information. And this is still kind of an ongoing problem. By no means this problem is solved. And there are a lot of interesting technical and organizational challenges to deliver this vision. Today I'm going to talk about what Google is doing and what are some of the tools and APIs we have built to make this vision possible for your enterprise. At Google, we obviously eat our own dog food, and we have delivered this vision to Googlers so that the Googlers can go to one single place to find all the information they are looking for. The four core areas which, or you can think about these as four pillars that we focus on to deliver that experience are, the number one is user. What can you do to customize the user experience? We obviously deliver a default user experience, but you have a lot of APIs and tools to customize the end user experience. And the secret sauce for us is really the search quality, how good the ranking of the search results is. The second aspect is reach. Inside enterprise, there's a lot of challenges around how do you index proprietary systems like Documentum, FileNet, SharePoint, FileShares, and many other repositories out there, and how do you do it in a secured way? So we have done a lot of investment in building these connectors, and we also wrote a connector framework so that you can write a connector for it. The third area is security. And this is an ongoing challenge because inside enterprise, every document is secure. And we want to make sure we give the user all the information, but all the information that he or she is entitled to see. So I'm going to talk about what does authentication and authorization mean for search appliance and what can you do from customization point of view. Last but not the least is scale. Once you can index all these documents in a secured way, you want to make sure you have a platform that can index to 1 million documents, 5 million, 10, 20, so on and so forth, so that you are not limited by the indexing and the scaling capacity. This is again an interesting aspect of the Google Search Appliance. And inside the enterprise, this is kind of a reality, and you can do a better job, is personalization. More likely or not, you know who the end user is. And for the same term, the importance of the documents varies. So for example, if I'm doing a search on SAML or security, if I'm in marketing, more likely I'm looking for some roadmap presentation or a data sheet. If I'm in sales, I'm just looking for kind of a quick summary of what SAML means. But if I'm in engineering, more likely I'm looking for a design document. And what we provide from a search appliance point of view is this ability to configure rules so that you can have different personas and you can deliver different search experience based on who the users are. So for example, we have this notion of biasing controls. You can create different biasing policies based on different personas. You can create a biasing policy for everybody who's in marketing, a biasing policy for everybody who's in engineering, a biasing policy for everybody who's in sales. And you can configure rules and say, if a user is in engineering, I want to give higher importance to design documents. Or if a user is in marketing, I want to give higher importance to roadmap presentations and data sheets. And as you can see from the screenshots, it's actually relatively easy to configure it. We give you a simple admin-based UI so that you can configure your policies and set it up. And what you can do is you can set up multiple policies based on these personas. You can set up a policy based on URL or repositories. You can set up a policy based on metadata. Or you can set up a policy based on date. You can say, I want to give higher importance to documents which are more current. This is kind of going into a little bit more detail on metadata biasing. So for example, in engineering, there might be some authors which are well respected in your organization. Or in marketing, there might be certain people who are writing a lot of important content. So what you can do is you can create different biasing policies and say, you know what, I want to give higher importance to all the documents that were authored by John in the engineering department or by Matthew in the marketing department. So you can create these different policies and so show these two personas. Now, as far as the end user experience itself is concerned, you have full control on that also. What we do is we give you a WYSIWYG wizard so that, if I go back to this slide, you can definitely decide how these links look like, what the color of the links is, how do the snippets looks like, and what kind of an image you want to put for your company and things like that. But more importantly, you can do more advanced customization. So the top thing just shows you a small snippet of HTML code. It's like an iframe which you can embed in any of your application. It can be a portal application or a wiki or a standard or an app. And we deliver the search experience for your users. But if you're an advanced developer and you want to customize the entire search experience, we also give you a REST-based XML API where you can see at the bottom of this, you can issue a simple request to us with the actual query string and the other parameters with the search appliance supports. And in return, we give you the XML response. So to quickly show you the actual place where you can look at it, we have a complete protocol from how we return you the results format. So if you look at the XML output, it gives you complete control on what these search results are. It gives you the information about attributes, what the meta tags are, what the format is, the cache link, the encoding, and I can just go through the entire XML. But the point I'm trying to say is that you can get your results in a raw format, which is XML, and then you can either use XSLT or any other language to transform this XML results into the HTML, render into your portal or any web or wiki application. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. If you want to take the default experience that the search appliance provides, you can take an HTML iframe. But if you want to write your own custom code and define your own user interface, want to have advanced metadata attributes and filtering and things like that, you can use the XML API, and it gives you the metadata attributes as well as the search results with the snippets and all the things that you see on the HTML iframe. So this is, again, the thing which I always tell people, you don't need to remember the links. Just Google it. You'll get it. Google Search Appliance search protocol will give you the very first result, which will tell you where you can define your own search interface and what this XML protocol looks like. So that's kind of what focusing on the end user side, allowing you to create not only rich UIs, but also more personalized UIs so that based on who the user is, you can create different experiences and you don't need to have one single vanilla experience for your entire enterprise. The second aspect which we are focusing a lot is this notion of how do you take the collective input from your employees. It's this kind of like crowdsourcing the search information. The classic example I give is that if somebody works for HR, they know where the vacation policy is, where the travel policy is, and where the official documents related to your handbook and things like that are. If somebody is in sales, they know where the price list is. If somebody is in engineering, they know where they keep the design documents. What if you allowed end users to submit the search results back to the appliance? So, we have one of the popular features called key match where administrator can set up saying, for this query, this is the best search result. But what if you take that feature to the next level and open it up to the entire enterprise so that you don't have one person, but the collective knowledge of your entire organization so that somebody in HR can submit a link saying, for vacation policy, this is the best document. Somebody in engineering can say, for security, this is the best document. So what you see on the top of the search results are these results which are entered by your end users. And once they have been submitted to the search appliance, if somebody else does the same search for vacation policy or design document, they would see these search results on the top. It will tell them who has entered it. And at the bottom, you would see the search results which are generated algorithmically by the search appliance. Now, again, you can customize this search interface completely. So maybe the search results on the top you might want to keep on the right and say, search results entered by employees or suggested recommendations and things like that. Think about this as taking the social knowledge that your employees have and kind of merging with the algorithmically generated search results that the GSA provides. The second feature, which is again requires some customization, but is very popular. This is actually a real screenshot from Google, Google's intranet, where if I'm looking for an employee or something, I can start typing in their name, and it will give me auto-completion for that person. I can do the same thing for looking up for conference rooms. Or at the bottom of it, you could also see we give you suggestions for queries. So these are kind of similar queries which somebody else had written. Now, this entire experience is, again, customizable and pluggable with the search appliance. What we have done is there's actually a lab. So if you go to, how many people are aware of Enterprise Lab? Google Enterprise Labs. So, it looks like not many. So I'm going to spend just a little bit time to explain to you guys what the Enterprise Labs is. So Labs is kind of our delivery platform where we can give you features before waiting for the next release of the search appliance. The analogy which I like to make is think about Labs as the games. So if the search appliance is like your Wii console, I like Wii a lot, but you can correlate with any other console out there. Think about Labs as those games where you can download these games and plug it into the search appliance. You don't need to upgrade the search appliance to the next release. You don't need to wait for the next release to come. If there's an interesting lab, you can just plug it in. We have released multiple labs, and the specific one which I was just talking about is called Search as You Type. The entire lab is available in open source, so you can download it. It's under Apache 2.0 licensing, so it's a very flexible licensing. And you can plug this thing, the Search as You Type, into your own LDAP directory or an employee lookup system, or it can be an expert system, or it can be a glossary. At Google, we have linked it into a glossary system, so if anybody enters a search for SAML, we can quickly look up the glossary lookup and tell people what SAML stands for or what GSA stands for. So this is, again, a very powerful mechanism which allows you to extend the search user interface and allows users to quickly find the information they are looking for. And in some ways, this is very similar to what you see on Google. On Google, I can start typing in SAML or any of these things, and it'll show you the search results that you're looking for. The second point which I was trying to emphasize, so then, we kind of spend a lot of time on the end user side because that's one area where we feel, is perhaps the most important area. Whenever, people talk about search, it's not about the performance or scalability or other things. At the end of the day is how relevant the search results are to your end user. And the search experience is part of that relevancy equation. If you can deliver the right search experience, your users can find the information that they're looking for. And to me, that's the biggest barometer for measuring if you have the right search technology or not. The second area is reach. If you're not indexing all your content, your users will obviously not be able to find it. If you have, 20 million documents, and if you're indexing only 5 million documents, of course, your users cannot find the information because you cannot index it. So in some ways, your search results are as good as your quality of indexes and how complete/comprehensive your index is. At Google, we also think about, we try to think about what can we do to make that problem easier. So one of the things which we have invested a lot is building connectors to different repositories that are out there in the enterprise. Starting from supporting different file formats, so we support more than 200 different file formats, starting from Excel, PDF, Word, and others, to all the way writing connectors to various repositories such as Documentum, SharePoint, FileNet, and LiveLink. Now, we do realize that, this is a pretty impressive list, but it's not a complete list. I'm pretty sure somebody in the audience has a repository which is not there in this, on this presentation here. So the question is, what can you do if we don't support a specific system that your organization has deployed? You have two options. One is we have a large partner network which has built connectors to many systems out there, including Stellent, which is now part of Oracle, Lotus Notes, SAP, Knowledge Management Repository, and things like that. But if you want to write your own connector, it's actually not that difficult. If I go back to my the main information about connectors, what we have done is the actual connector framework itself, we have open sourced it. It's written in Java, and it's completely open source. And the 4 connectors that we wrote, SharePoint, LiveLink, FileNet, and Documentum, are also open source. So you can look at how we build those connectors, and you can use this connector framework, which is completely open source. And I'm not going to go into specific detail, but perhaps the most important thing here to look at the SPI of the connector interface. It's relatively easy to, the method that we have used to expose these APIs is a traversal method, where you can traverse your backend repository, whether it's Stellent or any proprietary repository, and push the information in the search appliance. And what we have given you is not only this rich API, which allows you to traverse your Documentum or other repositories, but also the authentication and authorization APIs, so that you can write your custom security along with the connector that you are building. And finally, we give you an admin UI so that you can set up the schedules and say, I want to crawl my Stellent repository every 2 hours or every 24 hours. So you write that connector, you hook it up to the search appliance, and then you set it up your schedule. It's a pretty straightforward exercise, and depending on how complex your repository is, it can take anywhere from a week to maybe 2 weeks. And both the connector framework as well as the connectors themselves, everything is open source under Apache 2.0. So you're welcome to look at the code, and you're also welcome to customize any of the connectors that we have. This is kind of giving you a little bit more technical depth of this connector framework. At the very high level, you can think about, there's the search appliance, which has all these API hooks to push the documents inside the search appliance. But then the connector framework itself is a container-based application which you can deploy it in any servlet engine. It's written in Java. And the container gives you these APIs, the SPIs, which you are implementing your own connector and deploying with it. And finally, most likely you would end up using some library from your actual repository, unless your backend repository supports web services. In that case, you don't need to have any native library to talk to your backend system. So for example, in case of SharePoint, we use web services to directly talk to SharePoint to retrieve the information. In case of Documentum and LiveLink, we use the LAPI API or the DCTM API to talk to those repositories to fetch all the documents. Now, the important thing about this is it's not just documents. You can also retrieve metadata which is associated with your documents, as well as the security. So you're literally taking the entire structure that you have created in your backend repository and pushing it into the search appliance so that you can get the same native search that your backend system will give, but much better search quality and the ranking, and you can leverage the search appliance features. The second aspect of reach is, and this is very important, is it's not just about documents. Documents are definitely very important, and search is in some ways associated with documents. But if you look at what we have done on Google, you can not only search for documents, but also for structured information. You can do a search on weather. So, a very simple example, which I always tell people, is you can go to Google and do a search, weather, Mountain View. The very first result that you see here is actually the real-time weather information. And we are not indexing this weather information. It doesn't make sense for us to index the actual weather, which is in a specific zip code. We are doing a real-time call to a weather service. The same concept applies inside the enterprise. You have a lot of business applications, for example, your ERP systems or your BI systems, where it doesn't make sense for the search appliance to go and index these information. But we still want to make it easier for your end users so that they can go to one single search box and enter a query, purchase order 500, or East Coast sales, or support ticket 385. And what we are doing is we are giving you this framework where you can make real-time call into your backend application based on these triggers. So this is kind of going a little bit more detail on how the logic works. So, from an end user point of view, user enters a query, for example, purchase order 500 or East Coast sales. You as an administrator would have set up certain triggers. You can set up a trigger for words like purchase order, sales, support ticket, contact, and things like that. What it means that for each trigger, you are associating a backend URL, which is like a REST-based URL, and saying, if somebody is entering a query purchase order, I want to invoke so-and-so API from your backend system. We make that REST-based call to your backend system. The actual provider renders the search results back to us in a specific XML format that we have given it to you, and they give the search results back to it. And finally, what you see is that the search result that we get from this OneBox is displayed as the very first result on the top of all your search results. And this can theoretically be any application that you have. The API is flexible enough to talk to any of the applications that you have. And the good news is a lot of our partners, like Salesforce, have already written these predefined OneBox modules. So all you need to do is just configure that OneBox module and associate with a trigger. You don't need to write any code for it. But I can understand there might be 10, 15 applications which there aren't any OneBox modules. So the actual code for writing this is relatively easy. This is kind of the administrative side of it, where you set up these triggers and then you configure the providers. The actual providers itself can be written in any language. It basically supports a REST-based protocol. It takes the query and the authentication request, and then in response, this is like a quick snapshot of the XML schema. You just need to give us the URL, the provider, the search term, the title, you want to display any image, and any other information. And we'll take your rendering code and plug the search result back into the standard search results that we are defining. So, again, a very powerful feature, but relatively easy to set it up and display and integrate. Just a quick show of hands. How many people have actually played with OneBox or deployed it? That's not bad. Around 20% people have used the Search Appliance OneBox capability. Let's see. So I think we covered two of the most important areas. One is the end-user experience, which is what all customizations you can do from an end-user search experience point of view. And the second is the reach, how you can index content and how you can invoke back-end systems from your business applications. The third aspect is security. What we do is this kind of slide gives you a quick snapshot of all the security protocols that we support, starting from basic protocols like HTTP Basic, NTLM, LDAP, as well as advanced protocols like Kerberos, integrating with your single sign-on systems like SiteMinder and Oblix, as well as certificate-based. But there might be cases where you want to do your own custom security. You might be using a database for authentication, or your authorization rules are stored in a proprietary repository which doesn't fall into any of these buckets. So what we support to write your own custom authentication and authorization code is SAML SPI. And SAML is a standard. It's not Google proprietary. It's an OSS standard which you can write your own SAML code both for authentication and authorization. You plug in that SAML providers in the search appliance, and what we do is we do a callback when a user is trying to issue a query, and we ask you a question to the SAML provider that you use, that does this user has the right credentials? And then once he's authenticated, we also invoke the authorization module to ask the SAML provider a question saying, this user is trying to access these 20 documents. Does he or she has access to those documents? So you get to use the 98% of the search appliance capability, but for security, you can write your own custom authentication authorization, and we'll make callbacks to your module as the users are trying to find information and do secure searches. This is kind of goes a little bit more in detail to kind of quickly walk you through some of the steps on how the default security works. User does a security, and you have an option where you can set up a flag which says access equal to A, which is he's doing a secured search. The second thing we do is we ask him or her their credentials. If they are using Kerberos, we can directly look up at the silent authentication their ticket. We make sure that the authentication is done using your backend system. Once we have the authentication token, we get all the search results that match that particular query. There might be 50 search results which match a query security or design document. Now, we don't want to go and check authorization requests for all 50 of them. Because most likelihood we'll just return the first 10 or 15. So we go back to your backend systems and make a head request and check if that user has access to those documents or not. And if he or she has access to those results, we put it back in the search result. But if they don't have it, we silently take that search result out of the final search delivery. Now, the same module applies when you're writing your own custom code. Instead of we talking to your backend systems directly, we'll talk to your SAML authorization provider and ask that same question saying, John is trying to access these URLs. Does he or she has access to it? So those are the kind of two things you can do. You can either use the default security which we have on the search appliance, or you can write your own SAML authorization. And again, this is very well explained. If you go to the search appliance authentication documentation, there's also some sample stuff. You can look at both the authentication and the authorization SPIs, and it walks you through the standard details on how you can use SAML to write your own redirect protocol Now, SAML is obviously, it has its own kind of artifact binding protocol on how the redirection works with authentication. So we are implementing that very same protocol. This just gives you a little bit details on how you will bind those URLs in the search appliance and associate saying, for SAML use so-and-so artifact binding, and for authorization use so-and-so URL. So this documentation kind of goes in a little bit more detail on the protocol and the actual envelopes that you'll have to implement. How many people are familiar with SAML or played with SAML here? How many people have actually deployed something on SAML? Okay, very few. So, I think it's also a feedback to us to perhaps we need to reduce some of the complexity and the barrier on these protocols to make it easier, or make available more sample code so that you guys can look at it and play with it. It's actually not that difficult to write your own SAML module, and the flexibility that it gives you is really powerful because it allows you to write complete custom code for your authentication and authorization. So I think I have another 10 minutes or so. Just from a kind of logistics point of view, we tried to keep the Q&A at the end. I hope that's okay with you guys, so that we can spend the last 10 or 15 minutes just on the Q&A side of it. So if you have any questions on APIs or the search plans, we'll go through it. So I have a few more slides. I just want to go into a little bit detail before we switch over to the two guests we have here, and then open it for Q&A. The last area, which I want to emphasize a little bit, and this is, again, the unfortunate reality of some of the enterprise search deployments out there. If you have to scale to 5 or 10 million documents, more likely your search deployment is going to look something like that. If anyone who has deployed search to a higher scale, they will realize that how many systems you need to set it up and what kind of complexity it entails to even scale to 10 million documents. We believe this is not needed. We can make things much more simpler. You don't need to worry about indexing and serving and crawling and all that stuff. It should be hidden from you. And I think the fine balance that we are trying to play here is that we want to give you a plug-and-play box, but at the same time, as I mentioned you throughout my presentation, it's not a black box. You have APIs to write your own user interface. You have APIs to index whatever you want to index, along with whatever metadata you have. You have APIs to write your own custom code. So simplicity doesn't mean lack of functionality. Our answer to this is if you want to index 10 million documents, this is our answer. And literally, it requires one single search box. And those of you who are using it can testify that how easy is it to plug and play. Now, sometimes we get a criticism from some of our friends that it's great to have this simple model, but it's not flexible enough. And our answer is really what I explained to you today in the slides is that you can get best of both worlds. You can get a simple box, which is easy to plug and play, but at the same time, we are not stopping you to customize the box. The APIs allow you to practically do everything what you would do with a traditional deployment like this, right? And our point is you don't need to worry about such a complex deployment to get the rich customizations and the APIs we have. And if you look at the trajectory of, and this is just, I'm going to quickly show you, how rich we have built some of these APIs. I mean, starting from the entire connector manager or connector framework, which gives you complete control on your indexing capabilities. We open source the framework, the APIs are available. If you go more further on to authentication and authorization, again, these are standard protocols, SAML, which you can customize it. You don't need to worry about writing any proprietary code. OneBox, again, simple REST-based protocol. You don't need to implement complex SOAP marshalling or enveloping. It's very easy to implement. You can tie it to any back-end business application. To finally, the actual search protocol, to customizing your search interface itself. You can either take your HTML iframe and plug it into your portal, or you can write your own custom XML code to use XSLT or other formats to customize your search flow. So, I'm trying to give you the spectrum here, how rich the APIs are, and, how much you can do with this search appliance. And at the same time, we are delivering you a simple model. So from a deployment point of view, you don't need to worry about how do you set this up in your data center. You literally take this one, and I have set up a couple of search appliances, and it took me less than half an hour to plug it up, put an Ethernet jack, and start crawling that content. So if you want something basic and up and running, you can get it up and running within hours. If you want to customize it, it's absolutely possible. We haven't reduced the barrier on how you can customize it and how easy and simple those customizations are. So, I think we're doing good on time, and I don't want to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch gears a little bit and invite Wellstar here. Wellstar is one of the winners of, we had this competition for, the search appliance, how does it look like, the photo shoot. So Wellstar is one of the winners, and I'm glad we have we have the representation from Wellstar to come and talk about this solution. So why don't I invite Robin here, and why don't we give a big round of thanks to them for coming here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank Google for sponsoring the Where's Your GSA photo story contest. We had a great time creating the photo with Dr. William Cooper, the medical director of cardiovascular surgery at Kennestone Hospital in Atlanta. You can see him in the back looking very surgical. I'd also like to thank our lead developer, Joseph Ramos, and web developer Ralph Malbranche, both in the back, for participating in the photo, and then subsequently finding out that we did indeed win and refusing to come up here with me. Thank you guys very much. The GSA is obviously an incredible asset to healthcare, but I believe its healthcare-specific APIs are relatively scarce. So what I'd like to do today is present some API in the sky ideas to everyone and get the GSA development community talking about for-profit scale innovation in the not-for-profit sector. The question is, what makes this interesting? And the answer is a little bit touchy-feely. At the end of every IT system that we support, there is a patient, and generally an immediate family who is incredibly concerned about that individual's well-being. That's the touchy-feely side. On the business side, there is an extended set of friends and relatives who are all potential customers on the periphery of each patient relationship. This socio-business structure of referrals and interconnectivity is what we call the health fine. And healthcare as an industry kind of enjoys a unique situation of shared need among all of the individuals involved. And the goal is to provide such superior care and service that you're naturally earning business before a patient is biologically forced to take it to a competitor. The funnel for gaining this business from the health fine is generally technology-based, and in many ways it tapers in from efficiency, which is where the GSA excels. So I'd like to show you 2 examples of how our Wellstars web team has thought about using the GSA to tie everything together on our intranet. The first example is a search engine result page that mirrors the structure of our health system and categorizes information in a useful way. At the top, we've placed our 5 hospitals, 2 administration buildings, and the system warehouse, which makes facility-specific searching obviously easy. We've also placed a file type drill down on the right-hand side so employees can immediately narrow their results if they know an item is in a common format. But what would really make this interesting is a hospital census and Google charting API that publishes real-time data for managerial interpretation. In many ways, a hospital is a lot like a hotel. As your amount of patients increase, you need to staff adequately to provide great service. By supplying administrators with a steady stream of department-specific data, ambulatory services can actually be rerouted to more effective locations during peak capacity scenarios. The GSA effectively becomes a one-stop shop for current operating data.
So this is the OneBox, or what features are
that would be the OneBox.
Yeah,
these are all concepts that we'd like to see the GSA development community work on, because there's not enough people out there looking at healthcare and ways that we can do some stuff here. The second slide is a Health 2.0 slide. I know that in I guess kind of the world of Google here, everybody's pretty much sick of hearing Web 2.0. Well, this is just hitting hospitals. So the second example uses a double exclamation point MD trigger at the top, which you talked about earlier, to return a specific style of physician listing. This includes popular Web 2.0 components, a valuable location-based service that eliminates physician paging, and a stylized result page. By utilizing a trigger, employees retain their traditional Google search while gaining the unique functionality of a feature-rich physician listing. Cycling between the listing and traditional results is as easy as removing the trigger or clicking one of the drill-down options. The informational value on a page like this is immense. By integrating the Google Maps API with Wellstar's RFID badge system, the cliched nasal announcement of paging Dr. So-and-so is finally retired to television drama. As a physician is traced through specific buildings on our campus, Google's API can pick up the bigger picture. Our clinical staff includes some incredible content authors who are involved with system-produced multimedia. And this page also features their latest work. There should be a photo up in the right-hand corner there, but there's not. It would be some type of media, some video or something produced by one of our physicians. For example, if you have another outbreak of swine flu or something like that, you have a physician go on and produce media, and you can post it immediately for distribution. It's a very comprehensive overview of each clinical contributor. So I'm not sure if you can see the white text on white background there. We employ, our WellStar Health System employs over 12,000 people who not only work there, but also live in the service communities. Your own city can benefit from this type of connectivity, and it's full of patients, employees, friends, and families who can all benefit from healthcare-centric APIs that you develop for the GSA. And doesn't that type of opportunity just make you warm and fuzzy?
It's pretty good. It's actually pretty impressive, the amount of customization you guys are thinking about and have done so
Yeah,
far.
absolutely. With the badge system especially, the paging idea would be great for surgery.
How many developers you have working on this?
You're 3 of us.
That's a lot.
Think so?
No, that's really good.
Well,
So the customization is very rich.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that we loved about the GSA, too, is we kind of popped it in there and it went to work. I think the ratio that was often quoted was it takes 0.1 developers to actually implement it and use it.
Yeah, no, this is very, I'm actually pleased to see some of the customization you guys are doing or already done. This looks like looks like the universal search for healthcare.
Sure.
Like one single place, all your information for your
Absolutely.
patients and everything. That's very awesome. I need to be a WellStar customer, I guess.
Yeah,
in a nice way, without getting sick. Without getting sick, can I be your customer? So cool. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Sure. So I would like to invite one more guest from the state of Missouri, and they're also winners of the photo contest. So, Jim, thank you for coming, and please give a round of claps to Jim for coming.
Chris.
You want me to hold?
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, I'm with the state of Missouri. It's a little bit different for us. My presentation and my story that I sent in, we indexed the content for state government content that faces the public side. And so we don't necessarily look inward to our intranet, but outward, and give the citizens of the state of Missouri and any businesses that want to do business with the state of Missouri a way to find information. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about where we were, and then where we are, and then kind of the future where we want to go. Missouri is set up as 16 executive agencies, and then there's various other agencies and boards and commissions along with that. But each of those agencies was basically a silo. They had their own IT staff, their own web developers, their own application developers. There was no commonality, no common web search was implemented throughout any of there, and there was really no unified way of doing search across our executive agencies, when it was very likely that if you wanted to do business with the state of Missouri, you may need to go to the Department of Natural Resources as well as the Department of Agriculture. And those two sites were completely different. Where is Missouri? A few years ago, about the same time, several things happened. The first thing was we purchased Google GSA. And I can testify that it is just as easy as he says it is to plug it in
and
go.
Pretty good in your data center,
Yeah.
very noticeable.
Yeah, it is. It's very noticeable, stands out, but very easy. And so we purchased the Google GSAs, and about the same time, we also had a major IT consolidation within state government. All those 16 agencies that had IT staff, all of a sudden one day became one organization, one IT organization. So now we had control of all of the developers, all of the web developers, all of the IT staff worked for one organization now that supported those 16 agencies. And so now all of our government content is indexed. All of the public-facing government content is indexed and available to the citizens in a uniform manner across government. It provides for much richer search. We feel confident that we're providing all of that information out, the reach that he talked about. We've got that now, and we can feel confident when a business wants to do business with the state of Missouri that when they come to our state homepage or any other of those agencies, they really get what they want to find. And I wrote the bottom line basically is now we are able to provide reliable information out to customers and citizens. The future, we got a new administration just like every state does. We swore that new administration in January, and with that swearing in, we got a new position in state government in the CIO's office, which was a deputy CIO in charge of web presence. And that person is specifically going to focus on the web for state government. They have a lot of plans for state government. They want that person's sole focus is on how we present ourselves out to the web. You know, Web 2.0 is just now maybe hitting the medical field. Well, the government field's even further behind, and so it's good that we now have somebody who's focused on how do we use those technologies and those tools that are out there to help citizens do business with us. The vision that the deputy CIO has is for the website of state government to be presented on a user standpoint rather than how government wants to present. Me as a government employee, I know exactly where to go to find what I want. But you as a person moving to Missouri or a business trying to do business with Missouri has no idea how government's structured. Eventually, we want to get to where users can select what data they want to see on their website. We want to increase the use of the OneBox. We've started to investigate that. And really the goal, and Google really helps us go in this direction as a government entity, we want to be as transparent with the tax dollars as we can. We want to give the citizens access to all the information that they've basically paid for. And Google has provided that ability already, and then we really want to take that further and start utilizing not only the web OneBox, but web services to query real-time data. And then there has been talk now of internally facing the Google appliance so that we can search our intranet and make our internal employees even more efficient. So that's really all I have.
Chris, thank you so much for coming here and sharing with us some of the information. The search appliances really look nice. Your data center, I like the look of it. So thank you for sharing and thanks for coming. I'm going to show you one last demo before we open up for Q&A. Since we talked a lot about APIs, I just want to show you end-user experience. This is actually a live site, so you can try it. This is powered by Search Appliance, Writers.com. This is, as you can understand, it's a pretty popular site, and they get a lot of queries. You can enter any query here. For example, Google, the short form Google. What you see here, they've used many of our features, which I've been mentioning to you. For example, this quote here, this is a OneBox. So what they're doing is they're doing a special call to get the results about the Google stock closing price. Everything below it here, these are the standard results which are coming from the search appliance, and then they also married kind of the results from different avenues such as video results and things like that. So as you can see from this live implementation of the Google Search Appliance, you can practically customize the UI as you want. It doesn't need to be necessarily just the top 10 search results. You can integrate with your backend systems. You can decide what other information sources you want to bring in, and you can render the UI based on how your website looks like. And obviously, with Reuters, it's a pretty high kind of query volume website, so that having a GSA which powers them kind of makes it easier for them, that they don't need to worry about scale and things like that, because the search appliance can meet their demands on QPS and things like that. So again, a live site, you guys are welcome to play with it and see some of the cool features these guys have developed. So with that, I think we have around 10 minutes or so. We're going to open it up for Q&A, and I have some passes here. Somebody passed me. There's a Google Enterprise, says invitation-only dinner starting at 5. So what I'm going to do is anybody who asks interesting question, anybody who asks a question will give these passes out. So if you have any question, please feel free to grab one of those mics. And I don't need to bribe you with the pass, but still.
Unfortunately, I have dinner plans. On the SPI front, I have a content repository. It is not one of the ones that you've listed there, and I want to talk to you about that later. But do I need to authenticate or verify a user account and his privileges for every search result? So in other words, if I issue a query against the repository and the user is only entitled to see 10 out of, say, 100 matching results, do I need to verify each of those, or can I pre-populate the access control lists into the index so the index does the filtering for me?
Yeah, so authentication is, first of all, so the question is, do I need to do multiple time authentications, and what happens for authorization? So authentication is only done once during the session, which is the browser session or whatever. You can set up your cookie expiration. As far as the authorization is concerned, what we do is we give you an API. And what we have done for the connectors that we wrote, for example, Documentum, we don't make one request at a time. We're literally writing a DQL query. So we're doing a DQL query right into the Documentum database, sending the identity of the user, which can be an LDAP identity with the records, and then trying to get the answer back from the repository. So it's a very efficient single call we are doing. We're not storing any ACLs right now on the search appliance, but the call itself is very efficient, and it's a single call to your backend repository.
Okay, so I have to follow up.
Sure.
So in the case of Documentum, you're doing a live query against Documentum. So you're letting Documentum's index respond, not your search index.
We are letting the Documentum's ACL store, to be just precise, respond whether the user has authorization or not. That's right.
Okay, so I still need to understand, because once again, I issue a query, right? Normally, it would be the search appliance who would basically say, okay, I found 10 matching documents. But if I need to do that reconciliation between the GSA results and the Documentum results, I need to, do some kind of a follow-on query. So you do one full DQL query, and that basically returns the documents that they get access to?
We do one full DQL query at the serve time. At the indexing time.
At indexing time.
Not indexing time. At the serve time, we do one DQL query to find out which documents does the user have access on. Okay. And the benefit of that model is, if your Documentum ACLs changed, we are not storing anything. We are basically asking the DQL ACL store and saying, what does it have?
Yeah, so does that DQL query also include then all the, basically all the results that matched from the GSA front?
We generally don't put all the results, because you might have 1,000 results matched, but we're anyways going to display 15.
Let's say 100.
So we'll do only 15.
15, okay. So you send 15 at a time. You say, right, I match 15 of these 15, which is the user allowed to access? Gotcha.
Exactly. Did you head a pass, did you say? Or?
I have plans.
Okay. He has other plans to dinner. Maybe we can join you. Okay, go ahead.
I'll take the extra.
Okay. I'll let David distribute these, if you don't mind.
A lot of the features you've been talking about today, I know are directly aimed at the larger search appliance. Are any of these features also included on the mini side of things? I've worked with both the larger search appliance and then the smaller mini, and very interested, because on some of the things that we've had, much smaller repositories, but still would love to be able to take advantage of things like the OneBox.
Yeah. So that's a good question. We actually do support OneBox on Mini.
Wonderful.
Not all features that I spoke today we support on Mini, and the reason is pretty simple and straightforward. The Mini customers traditionally are what we call it, small to mid-sized customers. So, we don't want to put too much complexity in Mini, because it just makes life difficult. For a lot of those customers don't have the developer skill set and resources. The things which are relatively easy, like OneBox, is actually not that difficult, so it's available. We do support authentication with NTLM and LDAP. We don't support connectors on Mini. So there's actually a page on the Google Enterprise site where you can get the list of features that we support on Mini or not. And generally, our kind of guiding principle is based on the target audience that we are going after, or who are buying these products. Does this feature make sense or not?
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi. So we're in possession of a GSA appliance, and we're trying to implement it. And we have the CRM system, Microsoft Dynamics. And so all the activities that all our salespeople enter in are stored on a website. And when you open up this website, it actually opens the activities within an iframe on this website. So I was wondering, is there any way to crawl content on a website and the iframe inside it as well?
So most of them, it literally depends. If for some reason we cannot crawl your content because of JavaScript, or if it is kind of inside some complex nested iframe,
Yeah.
there are two ways you can solve that problem. One is, you can explicitly feed us the raw content itself.
Right. The feeds.
The feed API kind of
Yeah.
allows you to do that, right? The second thing is we can just try it out, and is just feed us the URL. So the thing you need to just quickly look at it is that, is the search appliance able to discover the URL? So that's the first thing. If it is not able to discover, then the best thing is just feed the URL so that at least it is able to discover. Okay. But if it is able to discover and not crawl the content, then your best option is to push the content itself as a base 64 encoded content in the search appliance.
Right. So we tried using the feed protocol, but for the feed protocol, do you have to use like a cron script to kind of like push it on a daily basis, or how do you kind of automate the pushing process?
So this is where, feed is kind of, so just for the broader audience, feed API is a way where you can push the content explicitly in the search appliance. And that API, we launched it in search appliance around 4.0, so it's been there out for 3 or maybe 3.5 years. The new protocol that we launched is this connector framework. This is kind of more of a pull traversal-based protocol, and that one gives you the tools to set up schedule and things like that. The feed API is a more kind of a raw toolkit API. It doesn't have this framework to set up schedules and admin UI, versus the connector framework does give you that entire scheduling and things like that.
So would you have to like set up like some sort of cron script or?
Yeah, so if you really like feed API using, I would simply write some small kind of a cron, some script which just kicks off every 12 hours or whatever time.
Okay, great, thanks.
Cool.
I missed the initial part of this session, but my question is in terms of searching rich multimedia like Flash content for specific search term, what is the approach towards that kind of searches and indexes?
So we do search Flash to a certain degree, and it's getting better. Actually, we announced a partnership on main Google. We worked with Adobe to have index the Flash, because behind the Flash kind of the rendering engine, there is the data model, which is the actual data. So on main Google, we did work with the Adobe team to actually index the actual data model and data. We are working with the Adobe team to kind of make it easier on the search appliance also. For other media types, obviously, we are doing a lot of interesting things, and this is kind of benefit of being under the Google umbrella. There's still a lot of R&D, and this is not a fully solved problem, the transcripts and videos and indexing that stuff. Today, you can obviously, if you have metadata for a video, title, author, date, tags, anything, you can push it using any of our APIs, and we'll index them, and you can search it. We don't do any transcription. There are some third-party utilities available there which will allow you to do transcripts, and you can also push it in the search appliance. So those are the kind of 3 options today you have with Mistry.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello. Yeah, are there any plans to expand some of the functionality you bundle on the search appliance? And what I'm thinking of is it could be more of an alternative to something like SharePoint. So pull in more of the Google technology around portal apps and all the other things.
So that's a great question. The question is, do you guys plan to make other functionality as part of search appliance, like Google Apps and things like that? So let me give a quick introduction on what Google Apps is. Google Apps is our hosted platform for document collaboration and document management. So we have applications like Google Docs, Sites, spreadsheets, and others. And we believe, the cloud gives us a lot of benefits from scale, access to anywhere, any device. And that's why we want to leverage our cloud computing infrastructure to make it easier. Now, the search appliance, it's explicitly focused on the content that's behind the firewall. So we don't plan to make those cloud computing technologies in the search appliance. We want the search appliance to be the conduit so that it can search everything that's in the firewall as well as everything is in the cloud. Now, if you want to use any of our kind of collaborative tools, I encourage you to sign up for Google Apps. It's a hosted platform, and it gives you much better benefits than some of the other collaboration tools out there. Go ahead.
My question's along the Google Apps. There's a recent article that was out in Fortune magazine talking about white labeling that so that the enterprise can bring those applications in-house and create their own application around the base, calendar, contacts, email as a part of the extension of the enterprise solution within Google, and then integrating them into existing applications within the enterprise.
So you're cheating, asking an apps question in a GSS session, but luckily I have a friend of mine. I'm going to call a friend of mine. Gabe, do you mind giving a 2-minute quick? You can come, or you can take the mic.
sense what might be two different questions. One was white labeling and bringing the apps on-premise, and the other was integrating them with on-premise systems. Yes. The latter one's a lot easier to address. The services that you talked about, calendar, mail, documents, et cetera, they have APIs that basically allow you to get to and manipulate and control the data within those applications, either centrally or driven directly by users, and you can use those to integrate with on-premise systems. So we had a talk today on building applications in the cloud that was strictly focused on doing document management through our APIs for those cloud-managed documents, doing integration with like Microsoft Office products directly, doing sync, those sorts of things. So that's our vision for how you do that integration is through those GData APIs, and you can find out more about those on CodeSite. As for actually bringing the services on-premise, I think as we mentioned here, that's not something that's really in plan. We think that the strength of those applications is really that they're offered on the cloud, that they're universally accessible, that we can drive updates to those applications in real time. So no plans along those lines.
Thank you. Thanks, Gabe. It's good to have your friends around. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi. You talked about the data biasing features, which I don't know if I understand entirely. I haven't heard about them before, but I'm wondering whether it's possible to base the identity of the user on external data sources like LDAP?
You could. So there are two kind of, in some ways, there are two distinct features. One is the biasing feature in itself. The biasing feature is basically Okay, we're back in business. So the question was, what are the biasing features and how does it relate to personalization? So the biasing feature basically allows you to say, I want to give higher importance to search results that come from this particular wiki or a file share or a website. So that's an example of a biasing feature, where you can give importance to a specific subset of your documents, and that can be based on a URL pattern, metadata, date, or some other variable. There's a second feature which you can create this biasing features instead of for the entire appliance one set of rules. You can create multiple policies, and then you can think about that each policy set can be tied to a different LDAP group. You can create a policy set for engineering LDAP group, one policy set for marketing, one for sales, and kind of deliver a different personalized search experience based on that LDAP IDs. So the short answer is yes, you can tie to your LDAP IDs the biasing policies. Go ahead.
One of the things that we're exploring is combining kind of traditional document-centric search with semantic search. An example would be I'm a utility company. I want to know all of my transformers that are within 2 weeks of needing service. So assuming that we can deal with the connectivity through a OneBox approach or a connector approach, what's the best way to introduce different kinds of language or keyword semantics into the search process? What's your recommended best practice for that?
Don't do anything, but I guess the question is, I generally am not a big fan of doing a lot of manual tagging and taxonomy. So if that's what your question is inclining, my answer is don't waste your time. The reason you are paying money to search vendors, to buy the technology is that the algorithms should do the job, right? If you had to tag every single document and put meta tags and taxonomy, you can actually use an open source database. You don't need a search engine. The real benefit of having a true search engine is this algorithms which can find the right information, looking at the query and looking at the raw text of the document. And actually, technology has become reasonably advanced. Maybe 10 years ago, I know a lot of the search vendors strongly recommended tagging and taxonomy. It's no longer required. So my recommendation is don't invest time on that.
Let me kind of follow up with that.
Sure.
Is the difference is it's not really a match or a keyword. It's a relation. So it's less than almost SQL-like kinds of things to be represented in the search request.
Right.
And again, I'm just curious as to what best practice.
So one thing, I'll do a quick demo here on Google, for example. And this is something, again, we do it on the search appliance also. I entered a query, SAML security, At the bottom of it, it says search is related to SAML security, SAML soap binding, Liberty Alliance, SAML token. Or if I did some other search, for example, let's say just security. At the bottom of this thing, it will give you various related options, and you can even look at book search results. Or if you can enter a more generic query like cars, and it'll give you various options. So the technology is already there where we can look at the query, we can look at your result set, and automatically give you suggestions for related queries. And the same thing features available on Search Appliance. It's called results clustering. It's called dynamic results clustering, where we can cluster these search results and give you the related terms and suggestions. So I think we are almost out of time. If any last questions, I'm happy to take. Otherwise, I'm going to be outside and we'll be hanging around there. Any last questions? I guess not. So, well, thank you so much for coming, and it's great talking to you guys, and thank you for being our customers.